There was this one time where I did cry. There's only one time a customer got to me. Hello everyone, this is Ross from Retro Dream Beam. I'm an eBay seller full-time. I've been doing this with my fiance Ned for more than 3 years now. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So this is a different type of video here. This is a little bit about my work past. So mayo, mustard, hot peppers, lettuce, onion, tomato, pickle, oil, and seasoning. So now people who work at Potbelly know that I have before. I worked at Potbelly Sandwich Works for almost 5 years. It was, I believe, from 2008 to like early 2013. So how I found out about this job was I was applying to a bunch of places. I was tired of not having fun money. I really wanted to get a job. I was just applying to everything, mall places, just anywhere, any place I could apply to. I got like no call back. So super, super frustrating. So I was just like, I knew I was going to be able to work hard and I just wanted to find someone to like give me a chance. I seriously just wanted someone to give me a chance. So one day, sitting there playing some video game, and all of a sudden a buddy of mine from a different high school gives me a call and he goes like, "Oh yeah, you were looking for a job, right?" And I was like, "Yep, totally." He goes, "Okay, go here at Potbelly Sandwich Works." I was like, "What's Potbelly Sandwich Works?" I didn't even know what it was. I never heard of it. Didn't even know it was food. I was just like confused. I knew that. I was like, "That's like an oven, or is that like a pig thing?" And I was like, "What are we talking about?" So he tells me that they make sandwiches. So I drive over there, and then I remember walking in. I go up to the desk. It was kind of like an informal interview. So I'm like, I'm here. I'm Ross. My buddy called me in. And all of a sudden, this guy walks out, and then he goes to the table, and then tells me to sit down. I sit down. So yeah, eventually go through the interview process. I get hired on the spot, and I was super excited. I was like, "Oh, finally, someone gave me a chance." I was just like really wanting a chance. I was like super stoked to be working. This was going to be like my first real big job. I did a bunch of like, gig work and then some part-time stuff, like really light stuff, like a small call center for like a couple weeks during Valentine's and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, working, shoveling snow whenever I needed to get like money for something. So this was my first real like big job at the time. So I knew I was going to put like everything into it. And honestly, to this day, other than the eBay that we're doing right now, I think that was like the job I actually worked the hardest at, which is kind of crazy to think about because I remember being in that younger mindset and I just really wanted to prove myself. So the first few weeks I was like super nervous. Everything's like fast paced. This is like a fast food place. So Potbelly Sandwich Works, how it typically works is there's a load station where people get like their meats and cheeses onto the sandwich and they order like what type of bread they want. Then it goes through an oven, and then while the well, I've been at eBay mind too much. Well, the sandwich is going through the oven. There'd be someone at a dress station where you put on all the toppings and you have to talk to the customer just about anything and everything you want while they wait for their sandwich. And then afterwards, there's a cash register. That's where the person gets cashed out. And then there's going to be like a shake machine. And then I don't know how it is set up now, but there's also preppers in the back room and stuff like that. So that was just like a typical shift. There would also be like people coming in the morning, kind of get all the cookies baked, get all the stuff freshly cut and sliced, like cheeses and meats. And then this lunch break would basically open near lunch, and then there would be a bunch of people that would come in from lunch. Ours was particularly near a bunch of offices, and then we also had a bunch of catering, which also had to be dealt in the morning. Every Potbelly Sandwich Works is different, but that was just like how ours was. So it'd be like a bunch of work from like the morning, and then all of a sudden it kind of drops off at like 2 or 3, and then there would be a whole transition into a nighttime shift, and it was pretty slow during the nighttime. You would still get like little dinner rushes, but it would like main chunk was the lunch time. So that was just like a typical day at Potbelly. So I ended up getting trained on like most of the stations, but I didn't get trained on shakes. So I remember I was working with the shift leader at the time. Shift leader is like a mini manager. I'm not sure what they call them now, but there'd be a employee and then a CT, which is someone that trains new employees. Then there would be a shift leader, and then there would be a manager, assistant manager, and then a general manager, and then district manager. But I was working this shift with the shift leader. It was just me and them at that time. And like a family comes in and they want a bunch of shakes, and then this person's at the load station, so they're making a bunch of stuff, and I'm still a newbie. This is like a weekend, right? So I'm still learning the ropes. No one taught me how to make a shake. So he calls out, you have to call out like shakes and soups and stuff. It'll be like a strawberry shake 2 all day, or a cup of tomato 2 all day, stuff like that. So he calls out a bunch of shakes. I look at him and I go, I was like, I don't know how to make shakes. He's like, "Oh, what kind of, you're so useless. So what kind of use are you?" And I'm like, no, seriously, like no one's ever trained me. Like I'm not being like lazy or anything. No one's ever trained me. So he was pretty frustrated. I didn't take offense to it. Like I had a good rapport with this shift leader for a couple of days, a couple of night shifts when I was just like learning the ropes. So he didn't know that I didn't know. So he had to actually wash his hands from his station. He was doing like load and dress, and then I had to kind of take over, and then I was kind of slow at that stuff. But then he got all the shakes made, and then afterwards he just went to the shake station. He's like, "Here's how you make," and he went through it. So it was just like a funny little situation. Like I said, I had good rapport, so it wasn't a big deal. Oh, so how I ended up learning most of what I knew during Potbelly was within the first month of working. I lived close by, and everyone ended up knowing that. And there's a lot of people, they like call off shifts, they don't want to work, they call in sick, they play hooky, stuff like that. They just like don't want to come in. So I kept getting these calls like, "Oh, hey Ross, do you want to work like the night shift?" I'm like, "Okay, cool. I already worked lunch, but sure, I'll come in." I was literally like 5 to 10 minutes away, so I would come in and then work the whole shift. And then I kept picking up the phone. Like I said, I was excited to prove myself. I kept picking up. I'm like, okay, sure. I just kind of like, I was still like nervous at this point being there doing the job. I don't know why I had so much nerves. It's great. I was like really timid person, like insanely timid, just kept to myself my whole life. So this was really, I knew it was going to help break me out of a shell. So I just kept picking up and everything. Yep. I ended up getting like a crazy, I don't know how many days it was. I don't even know how many like hours or days I worked, but I had so much overtime that, and I didn't even know. I saw my paycheck. I'm like, "Oh, this is amazing. This is awesome. Yeah, this is like just what I wanted." I just kept working. I had like no time to myself, but I learned everything by forcing myself to just constantly pick up the phone. Yeah, I can come in to cover that person's shift because I was just like thrown into morning shifts, super early morning shifts, closes, clopins, close, and then you just go to sleep and eat and shower, and then you open the store the next day. So those are called clopins. I get my general manager's serious. He goes, "Ross, we need to talk." I'm like super confused. I'm like, "What did I do? I've been working really good. I learned everything. I'm like learning everything. I'm like trying really hard. Not a single customer complained, nothing at this point." He pulls me to the back. He goes, "Why do you have this many hours like for your paycheck?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" Because I worked them. Like I worked the hours. Guys, I was really naive at the time. I'm like, "I worked all these hours." Like he's like, "What do you mean? That's not your schedule. I didn't give you that schedule." And I was like, "Oh, people kept calling me in, and I kept saying, yeah." Like so, I basically like everyone kept calling me in. And he's like, "Oh, Ross, do you know you almost got me fired?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "We had to pay you so much overtime." I'm like, "I know, it's great." I was like, "Yeah, already." I'm like already building up my little like checklist of stuff I want to buy. I get to actually like uh, fix up my car and stuff like that. I was getting excited for that. I was like, "Okay, yeah, for sure, dude. I get to like purchase all the stuff I've been like wanting like my whole life." I was excited for it. He's like, "You have to if you pick up a shift, it has to go through me now." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I'm like, "Well, am I in trouble?" He's like, "No, you're not in trouble. I didn't realize everyone just kept calling you, and yeah, you gotta just make sure it goes through me." So that was hilarious. It was like it was an insane amount of hours I worked, but I learned everything, and that was fun. I remember that being like a lot of fun, and it did break me out of like my initial shell. All right, so there was a lot of fun I had at Potbelly Sandwich Works. There was this one time I remember there was this person. They always wanted to get their shift called off, and I picked up a lot of them. But then I got a little bit smart. I was into Magic the Gathering at the time. I'm like, well, I was thinking in my head, I can double down on picking up someone's shift, which gives me more hours, and then all I has to do is go through the general manager, and then also I need a little bit of an incentive from the person. So I go, "Okay, I'll pick up your shift, but you gotta buy me a couple Magic the Gathering packs." And they're like, "What's a Magic the Gathering pack?" So I'm explaining, you gotta go to Targets or you gotta go to Walmart. They're gonna be on the little sprues, and you're gonna have to get me some of those. They're like, "Well, how expensive are they?" I think they were like $3, $3.50 at the time. And they're like, "Okay, sure." So I started getting some packs from someone. So in my head, I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome because now I don't have to spend my money. I'm working the shift, gonna get paid from Potbelly, and then this person wants to call off a bunch is now giving me packs, which are money to work." I never got anything good from those packs. I remember the first pack. Magic the Gathering people would know this. It was like a core set pack. I open up a Shivan Dragon. I'm like, oh, it's basically worthless, like a penny. I'm like, oh, wasn't anything good. So I never got anything good from it. So I guess karma got back to me. Like I said earlier, the dress station is the station where, as the sandwiches are coming out of the oven, you have to engage and talk to the customer. And as a timid person, I found it really hard. So what I started doing was just watching a ton of movies, just nonstop watching movies. I was going to college at the time and commuting to college. So it was basically like 35, 40 hours of college, 35, 40 hours of Potbelly at the time. That's all I was doing. I would have maybe like one day a month to myself. But there was like a little deal with the college and then the movie theater nearby where I was getting like, it was super cheap. I can't remember the price, but I watched every movie as much as I could for really cheap. And then I had a thing to talk to people about because I would ask them, hey, have you seen any good movies recently? And that particular question sparked a lot of conversation. So it kind of brought it down to like my timidness where I can just like ask kind of like the same thing over and over again. Obviously, I played variations on it throughout time. And then it wasn't just the only question I talked to customers about. And then there was this other thing I did where I got permission from, I think it was like my general manager at the time. It said there's always a bunch of weird laws in different states. So I thought that if I could, I would go on like a website and be like, oh, what's a weird law for like whatever, Wisconsin or Florida or something. I would find like a legit law. It might be like you can't tie your alligator to a lamppost or something, stuff like that, which were technical laws. So that every day when I would find out these different laws, I would do them for the full week, and I would ask customers at this dress station if they can name the state for the following law without looking it up, because I'd be looking at them. If they go to their phone, it's a game over there. They would get a free sandwich on me. And a lot of people actually like that. A lot of customers like that. My managers like that I was doing that. So yeah, it really broke me out of like a shell. And I realized, and then still to this day, like the best thing to do to really understand someone, their feelings and even their logic or anything, is just kind of sometimes a lot of it is asking questions. And then most of it is just sitting there and just actually listening to someone else, just listen to what they have to say. So a lot of people are coming through a restaurant, so I really got to like listen to a lot of different people at this dress station. I happen to be good at making quality sandwiches with the dressings, putting on all the toppings, so I was at that station a lot. So that just helped me break out of like this timid shell I had. Also, there'd be like a lot of repeat customers. It's been a long time since I worked there, but I remember there used to be this older gentleman always came in, and they were always nice to everyone. So it's just like cool to see that. You get a lot of positive experiences with customers. And then there's also this person that worked across the street came in and always ordered like quadruple meat of something, which for me, I was like, oh, that's a lot. Like they were like a tall, bigger person, and I'm like a short person. So it was just like interesting. That one still sticks in my head because they were coming there throughout like my 5 years being there, and then even past that. Oh, there's this one time where we were doing it was me and someone else, and we were going to do like, we had a friend that was going to go through the interview process. They were probably going to get a job. They were qualified and all that stuff. But me and another person, we ended up doing this like fake interview with this person that was coming in. We both personally knew them in our personal lives. It was basically our friends. So we sat down and we were just like going through, they were also never had a job before. So they were like super nervous. So we were just going through these like kind of like normal questions they would go through. And then out of nowhere it'd be like, how hot are the hot peppers? And they'd be like, pretty spicy. Oh, it's so great, just like messing with a buddy like that. There's always like fun stuff people do, like employees and stuff. So they eventually got like a proper interview, but we definitely did a setup. So that was just a lot of fun. How hot are hot peppers? They were just confused. You also get into like friendships with people you're working in. There's like rivalries, there's frenemies, there's all sorts of people. You go out, and then like a lot of them would have like parties and stuff. Me, introverted, I barely went to any of the parties, and most of the parties were just like a bunch of people hanging out at someone's parents' house, just like basically talking smack about everything. It was kind of like like typical drama talk, and not all of it was like negative drama. It was just like, people just hanging out after work and stuff like that. And then my favorite thing was a lot of people would, after our restaurant closed, we would go to other restaurants at nighttime, like the super late open ones, and we would just sit down and eat, and made a lot of friends that way. So that was always like a good moment for me, because you're also hungry after you're done working. And yeah, I did eat a bunch of Potbelly and stuff when I was there, but you also went to other stuff. So going after work with your like employees or your buddies and friends and stuff, also a blast. Onto the complaints. Oh boy. Woo. Yeah, everyone's waiting for the drama, the complaints. Yeah. There's definitely some complaints I had. So like I said, this was my first job. So there ended up being a lot of these like meetings that you would have where, like, you know, sometimes there'd be like general managers, district managers come in and stuff. And I always, like, when I was naive at the time, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have all these good ideas for how this place can grow and stuff. Like, I really cared about this job. Like, it was like crazy how much I cared, because I was just so glad to have a chance to like prove myself, and I was fitting just right in, and I was doing super well. I remember there was this particular meeting where they're like talking about like things that we can improve and stuff. So I'm like, oh, avocados are like really crazy popular right now, and I thought it was a good idea. So I brought it up, and they basically like shot down the idea, and I was like really confused at the time. It took me a while for it to settle. I was like, why would they not? They basically said something like, oh, our sandwiches are like the perfect, there doesn't need to be anything else, you know, in it. Like, we have our 9 toppings, we don't want anything else, it's fine, it's literally the perfect crafted sandwich. And I was just like, that's so strange to me. I was like, avocados was like, I literally felt like I mean, it was all every other restaurant, anything was just adding avocados, and Potbelly wasn't. And it was like a suggestion I had, and I was just like, I just thought it was crazy that like no one, like these higher up people, weren't thinking about it. I was like, this is literally like a 10 $100 million idea, no joke. I know it sounds like dramatic, but like all these other places ended up doing avocado like pretty early. I do believe, I looked it up before filming, they added avocado in 2019 to Potbelly. I had that idea in like 2009. I was so like, this was like frustrating me, because I was like, I care about this job, and I actually care about like the growth of the company and stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, not a big deal. I was just like a little naive and shocked that my idea was kind of like shut down instantly. I was like, okay, that's weird. And more of these meetings happened, and I realized that they were more kind of like these like morale meetings, and not like, in my head I thought it was actually going to be like an opportunity for like actual growth of the actual company. So that was like a huge complaint. It was like always bothering me. I'm like, I always felt like I cared slightly more than people that were higher up and getting paid more and should be caring more. And I was just like, I just felt, I don't know, I guess at some point it started to, my meeting excitement kind of went down, because I'm like, oh, we're just going to do some like, oh, you know, hurrah, what are some things of like we can improve in store and stuff like that. It's like that wasn't my idea of like improving. That just wasn't my idea of these meetings, or what I thought the purpose of these should be. Oh, there's also this other think time that bothered me. It's still in my head. I'm not going to name names for these places, but we had local competition where I could walk out the store and go and basically get like other sandwiches and stuff like that. So there was one time, one of these meetings, they were talking about Potbelly's competition, and then they only considered like a couple places as competition. I was just like, well, I like raised my hand. I'm like, what about the like the other place? Like, that place is like booming. We should be like keeping an eye out with them and seeing what they're doing. And they're like, no, that's not our competition. And I sat there, and I was like, back in my head, and I was like, okay. I kept it cool, because I like at this point I understood how the meetings went. But I was like, why aren't they at the competition? They're like, oh, they don't do like just sandwiches. I'm like, but they do sandwiches and other stuff. Like, they do sandwiches and other stuff. And they're like, nope, we're just competing with just sandwich, just a sandwich slot right there. They're not competition. Oh, I went home. I went home later on, and I was just like, I can't believe it. Like, it's lunchtime. Like, any business for lunch is competition. Like, that, it just blew my mind. Like, it still blows my mind to this day that was actually something that was said by someone like many rungs up. I'm like, oh, I wish I can. Yeah, I really don't want to name like other restaurants and stuff like that. But yeah, it was obvious that this was definitely good competition to be keeping an eye out on, and trying to see like what they're doing well, and maybe like we can incorporate some of that stuff, kind of like my avocado idea and stuff like that. But nope. didn't listen to it. So I think that was the last time I cared during those meetings to try to like improve anything, because apparently my ideas were worthless. I knew that they weren't, but I'm just like, okay, cool. That this is just like, I can't try anymore. At some point I was like, man, and thinking back at it now, they really like messed up with me, because like I actually really did care, and I was actually had like all these ideas and stuff that just no one was listening to. A lot which did eventually get incorporated, like 2019 for these avocados. Like I had most of their ideas now that I see like have been implemented. Maybe I'll look it up maybe like once every few years. I'm like, I thought about that, brought it up in a meeting, was tossed aside. There was this one time where I did cry. There's only one time a customer got to me. You get a lot of angry customers, but yeah, there was this one time. It was, I don't have like a good memory for orders. A lot of people at the place, and even like newbies and stuff, they just had like, they could keep a lot of customers orders in their head, and like I just couldn't do it unless if it was really simple, unless if someone always came in and if it was something super simple like a turkey sandwich, no cheese, regular bread. I can always remember that. It's like one thing, it's like no toppings. But like there was this person that would come in and they would get like 5 or 6 sandwiches, and I saw the person a lot, like, well, like a medium amount, like every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe once a month. Obviously I'm not working every night shift. They would come in more like 5 or 6, like dinner time, sometimes 7 and stuff. And then this person just went off at me, because like I'm trying to like get their order at the load station. I'm just trying to do it, and they just went off at me, really angry, basically calling me a bunch of names, like worthless, nonsense, stupid, you should know my order by now. And don't know why. It's still like something like this wouldn't even bother me that day. I just got like those tears just like going down, and I'm staying strong, because like, well, other than the tears, I'm just staying strong. I'm just like, I'm trying to like actually get their order started, because like it needs to go through the oven stuff. And eventually I do get the order through the oven, and I'm trying to say like, oh, I just don't have your order memorized, but they were still going off and off and off. And then I think the assistant manager up let me like chill out in the back a little bit. It wasn't a big deal. I was going to complete it, but they're like, you're crying, so like we'll figure it out later. So don't know why I cried that day. That was like the only time I actually cried from a customer. It wasn't even like that big of a deal. Maybe I had like a lot of nerves and stuff like from a test. I can't really remember exactly. Like I said, I was going to college full time while doing this job. So yeah, I do remember that particular customer. That customer did eventually apologize to me. I never gave them attitude. I never got mad at them. I always tried to get their order. I always stuck to it. And I kind of learned a lot about customer service. And I always think back to that time where I just like, I had the tears come down, but I still stuck through. It was like my job was to make sure that they got sandwiches. They were the customer, and that was all that mattered. You really have to like set aside yourself for some of this stuff. And I think that there should be like kind of like a prerequisite for life, or for everyone, that they should be forced at some point in their life to work at least a year in some kind of food place, or maybe like a coffee place or barista, because like you really do get treated like crap all the time. Not all the time, sorry. You really do get the brunt of a lot of people's anger. So like people are hungry, and then they're angry. They might have, like a lot of these people, at least that I was serving, were at office jobs. So maybe they didn't get a promotion. Maybe they have someone else, like their boss or something, not listening to them. And then you make one mistake. Like you make like hundreds and sometimes thousands of sandwiches a day. You make one mistake. I mean, it's going to happen. You make hundreds, thousands sandwiches, anything, you're going to make some mistakes. It just happens. And then some people, they use you as a punching bag, and you just have to eat it. But it built up a lot of my character. It built up a lot of my confidence. It built up like, it actually gave me a lot of compassion, because like and a lot of mental fortitude, because you really have to go through like a bunch of like verbal attacks at times, because I would always sit there and I'm like, I'm never going to treat anyone in my life how either I or one of my fellow employees just got treated. Like I really do think there has to be like a prerequisite to life. Like there's like a clear difference of someone who's worked in some kind of food or something, and I'm not saying as like a complete negative thing, but there really is a difference, because like once you've worked within the food industry and something, like you will understand what I'm saying. Like you are a punching bag. and you do have to endure a lot. And I was already like I already told you I was timid, but I already had like strong mental fortitude for this kind of stuff already. I don't know. It just I played a lot of like online games, and I think that's where I got it from. I played games like I'm gonna go through some like old school ones, but these had online message boards and chat boards, and they were competitive. So you would always get people smack talking you. So there'd be like Halo 2 for Xbox Live and other Xbox Live games, World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne competitive, StarCraft competitive. There's a lot of League of Legends and toxicity in there. Like you just get used to a lot of angry stuff being said over, at least this is over a screen. So like I already had a lot of that built up. So, but like this was, so it translated kind of nicely into, for me, in person, because I already had a lot of the thick skin. Because like you're when you're playing these online video games, you're basically told everything under the sun, and they're trying to get under your skin, and it never like it fully bothered me, if that makes sense. So that was a nice little skill set that I had, that I already had. So I think it would be helpful, at least for people to work some kind of restaurant job for like a year. It really does change. I think it changed a lot of my perspective. I think a lot of my customer service skills, a lot of like things just bouncing off of me from what people say. Like I said, it built up a lot of my character. It really built up my compassion for other people. I really learned to like listen to other people, because the when you're at one of these jobs, the goal was to make the customer happy. That was the goal. Like my feelings didn't matter. There wasn't like, oh, you're allowed to like vent or rage at someone, right? So you learn to separate that. You can complain on your own time, right? But not on the clock, not to the customer. And that's awful, because then you lose a customer, that's less money coming in. And like I said, I really cared about this job, and I cared about every single person that came through, even the ones that were like mean and even used me or other people as punching bags at the times. Because like by listening to them, I understood that it wasn't even usually me or the mistake. It was actually like something else happening in their life. So you could, obviously it's not like a reason to allow people to use you as a punching bag, but like at least understanding it, you can kind of then get to a solution. So I have this like weird way of how I approach solutions and problems in my head, and I'm always trying to figure out like where the problem stems from, and then like what can I control. And there's a lot of stuff in between that you can't control. So okay, this story I'm about to say, oh man, I felt so bad for this fellow employee. So it was me and this other fellow employee at nighttime shift, and this person walks in, and I'm about to say some stuff, but I'm going to switch all the lingo, but think of whatever the worst word is, and that is what was told to this person. So I do the sandwich at load, make the sandwich, put it through the oven, and then my fellow employee was at the dress station, and then I think the shift leader was like in the back or something, cleaning, doing like cleaning and stuff like that, dishes. So it goes to this customer goes to this employee, and they start saying like, you're a snore, you are a baseball bunt, you are below me, you make my sandwich right, you better not mess, like all of this. Really, it was the most aggressive attacks, verbal attacks I ever heard, ever. So like I was just a regular employee at the time. I did eventually get up to be a shift leader, and then I was on track to be an assistant manager, but that's a whole nother story. I just look at this employee, and they're looking at me, and she has like this, like just basically as if it was like a look I've never seen before. So I I go over to her, and I'm like, oh, like, hey, whatever, like, can you can go in the back if you want. Like, I got this, I got this. So yeah, she went to the back, and obviously she's gonna go cry, right? It was brutal. So I don't think the lady said anything mean to me, or if she did, like I said, I just let it roll off, like my skin, right off the shoulder. Didn't care. Got the customer out, and then so that was done. I go back to her, and I was like, did you know that person? Like what? Like did you take out someone in their family? Like what's going on? I was like super confused, and they were like, I've never met that person in my whole life. Like I don't know them. And I sat there, and I was just like, wow, it's like that was like unreal. I still, it was, oh, it was so brutal, just like nonstop verbal attacks over like a sandwich, and there was no mistake. It was literally nothing. Like they didn't know what happened. I didn't see anything happened. They didn't know the customer. So that was just like the peak of this particular situation I'm talking about. That was the only time that type of uh, angry customer happened. Who knows what was going on at all. And but yeah, that's why I said you really, I really think that people would learn a lot about life if they just did restaurant business for a year. That no one would ever treat someone like that if they witnessed that. It was still shocking to me. The in-store like employee drama, oh, it drove me crazy. It was like nonstop. It was like 100 times worse than like high school or even middle school. It was just nonstop, and like you kind of get like wrapped into it. I try to stay out as much as possible. Like I really cared about the job, just caring about the customers, trying to get them their sandwiches, trying to get them their soups and shakes and stuff like that. But there was so much drama, and it was always like super petty. Here's like an example. There would be like a request off book for like when you would request off days, and then it would be like this little black book, at least for ours at our shop. I'm not sure how other shops worked, but you would have to write in like your requests of like days off. And then I wanted a convention off, Gen Con. That was the only thing I think I ever requested off, unless if I had a school finals. I would talk to my general manager like, hey, I have school finals, so if you schedule me, I'm not showing up because I'm going to school or whatever. Either way, so you can count it as a request off, or I can just tell you right now. And they were usually like, okay, I got you. I would go into this book, and then I would open it up, and there would always be some employees that like the day that like each year when this book renewed, there would be these people that would just walk in, request off on almost as much as they could for the whole book. Like they literally came out on their day off, day one, hour one of that book being in like the back room, and then request off a bunch of stuff. And then I went to go request at Gen Con. I almost request off nothing, like I said, and I go, Gen Con's a board game card game convention. So then I went and I go to the weekend, and there's like a bunch of people requesting off this weekend, and I'm like, nope, that's not happening. Like I'm actually taking it off. Like Ross only asks off 1 week the whole year. Ross is getting it off. Sorry. So I write it and everything. I write it all over. All right. And then like later on, I was told like my name was scratched off on the weekend. That weekend, I'm like, excuse me. I was like, why is it scratched off? And it was like, oh, that's like whatever, some like music concert. I'm like, well, I literally only ask off 1 week. So I go back into the book and I write my name back in. I'm like, you know what? Scratch off my name. I scratch off everyone else's. There's this constant bickering and stuff between people. So like here's how like a typical like how all the drama starts to bubble and boil. So the morning shifts comes in, and they complain that they say that the night shift didn't clean or didn't have everything ready or prepped. So they eventually get to the middle shift, like usually like 2 o'clock, and then they transition it into the night shift. And then the night shift gets in, and they're like, well, this isn't all clean and stuff, so you left it with me dirty. You're supposed to leave basically every station clean, everything filled up. It's supposed to be like a start from zero type of thing. And then that almost never happens. So then the night shift gets cranky because now they're trying to play catch up. And then now because they're playing catch up, they run out of time to do everything. And then the morning shift then gets it. And then they go, oh my God, the night shift didn't do anything. They're lazy. So then they eventually get to the point where they transition up, and then the cycle goes and goes. And of course, there's going to be people within these different shifts and stuff. And that's how you get like all this like bickering and drama. It was so ridiculous. It was so pointless. Cause like I was like the person, I'm like, I just want this stuff done. Like, yeah, once in a while I'll be annoyed. I'll be like, wow, they really like left me a crappy shift just because they thought I did something bad the night before, which I didn't, but they thought I did or something like that. So that would be really obnoxious. Shifts fighting other shifts. It's like we're all on the same team, and I was always like really frustrated because I'm caring about like I said, the growth of the store and stuff, and then other people I guess weren't. And like I said, I was first job, so like I was taking it like super serious. Okay, this story, this was also another one that blew my mind. So once in a while, corporate people would come in, and I'm not going to say their name, but I still remember this. It was kind of creepy. All right, so corporate comes in, and over the course of me working there, they kept cutting more and more people from a shift, meaning like there used to be like 4 or 5 people on like a nighttime shift down to like 3, and then eventually down to 2. but there ends up being a lot of problems with that because there's a lot of hard rules for a lot of these like spots. So for example, like the cash register, one person has to have the cash register, and if you're the only shift leader, you have to be at the cash register. But then you also have 3 stations. You have like dress and load, so then you're stuck on like the cash register and no one can touch your cash register. But then there's like other tasks that need to be done, but you always have to be there. And then there's also the other issue of taking out garbage. Garbage was like in a mini little small little alleyway, and then it always had to be, you have to have 2 people taking out garbage because that's a dangerous situation for anyone. You don't want to have one person go out there, so the hard rule of 2 people, right? But now you can start seeing the problem because there was once, like I said, this was towards the end, this was when I was a shift leader, there would be me and one other person. There wasn't like a third person anymore. So how do you take out garbage when you need 2 people? But in order to do that, you have to leave like the whole store. That's dangerous. One, now you're leaving like a register, and then even though you have like, yeah, so you're leaving a register, and now like you're gonna be leaving the whole store. Like some of these like rules just started to really, in my head, started crumbling. At this point, I realized that like I cared more than a lot of the people apparently, and even like the higher ups and stuff, because like these rules were nonsensical. They were basically conflicting and dangerous. So I remember this corporate person came in at nighttime, and then there was 2 of us, and then this corporate person, and they're kind of like doing like typical stuff, you know, trying to like, oh, that's dusty over there. It's like, okay, cool, yeah. All you can dock me on is like a little dust 20 feet up high on the thing. Like, great job there. Like, no joke. Like it would always be all these like nonsensical stuff where it's like, oh, why is that there? It's like, oh, well, what do you mean? Why is the sandwich there? There's a customer, they're ordering the sandwich. Like, you know, like silly stuff like that. People know if you know what I'm talking about. But so I got a little smart ass because I was really curious about this particular situation because it bothered me for a dangerous standpoint. So I turn to this person that come in. I go, I need to take out the garbage right now. And it was true. We needed to take out the garbage. And they're like, okay. And they're like, go do it. And I'm like, but I was like, but there needs to be 2 people to take out the garbage. And there's only one other person I'm with. So like, am I supposed to leave the store empty? This is what followed. This person did one of those creepy smiles and creepy head tilts like in a horror movie where it's like a doll where they went, and I forgot what they said. They said something like ridiculous. They basically knew that I kind of like, you know, showed them in their face like, hey, this is like literally a dangerous situation by your guys' rules, set up rules that we have to follow, because like also you can get fired for all this stuff, and it's dangerous. I really wish I remember what they said, but that head tilt, slow head tilt with the weird smile, it was so creepy. But yeah, of course, all of a sudden the next day, I get a complaint from my general manager about how I sucked and stuff like that, even though I didn't. There's only issues of like dust in places where people don't even eat and stuff. I'm like, oh, I know I just got like a lecture. And I let my general manager know at the time. I was like, yeah, this is what I said and stuff. And they were like, you said that? And I'm like, why does no one else care but me? Like, why does literally no one else care about this particular stuff? Like, this is serious stuff. Like, I'm gonna have like a girl that's 16 taking out the garbage by herself in the alleyway? Nope. Nuh-uh. Nope. Absolutely not. So, yeah, I was just like, yeah, it was not a big deal. Like, I was like, I didn't even get a good answer. I don't remember. I really wish I remember what the answer was. Now, here is the thing that kind of turned a lot of wheels in my head, and I'll get to it, and I'm going to relate it to eBay. I know it's been a long time, but okay, so there was me. I was working the shift. I was shift leader, and then a lot of people called off. I think a couple people were on vacation, like general manager and stuff. So we had to have another shift leader from another store come in. And then we also had more call off. So disaster after disaster. And I think we only had like 4 people or 3 people for like a huge lunch with catering and absolute, if you don't know that, we were basically not staffed at that point. So we're going through everything, and then we had a catering complaint, and so I have to pick up the phone, and we actually were lucky enough to have a catering person to deal with all the catering. So that was one thing that I technically wasn't like too involved in. So I ended up going, picking up the phone call, and then the customer it was like 6 sandwiches. They were upset that it was like 5 minutes late. So I try to go through all like my apologies and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to like, I'm just gonna comp all of the sandwiches. Like, we messed up. Sorry, 5 minutes, because like I understand these offices have like meetings at specific times, and 5 minutes could be a big deal, even though for me it's not a big deal. But I understand like this is a big actual deal for customers and stuff. They're also on timelines. It's not like they have infinite time, but. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna comp all this stuff, and then no, they weren't having it. They kept wanting to like talk and vent to me on the phone. There's only like 2 people dealing with everything else. It's already a disaster. So like I quickly I'm like, I'm trying to apologize. I'm like, okay, well I'll make sure that we will call you later and get you some like free sandwich coupons. Basically, I'm trying to like fix the whole situation. It was over 6 sandwiches, 5 minutes late. I'm not like back talking or anything. I'm trying to figure out. So person says, fine, I'm gonna call corporate, and then they hang up, and I'm like, okay, I can't deal with this. So I'm going back to actually dealing with the actual customers in the store as well. So we're going through, and like an hour or two later, like I said, this whole day was a disaster. A very, very high up corporate person came in. They grab a chair. Still blows my mind to today. They go all the way into the middle of the place. They put down the chair. They sit down and they just stare. They're just like staring at us. They're in the way of everyone. They're in the way to customers. Customers don't know who this person is. It's like really obnoxious in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, this person's gonna get pretty upset. I know them. I know. I've seen this person's emails. I know who this is. This is not gonna be pretty. But it did not go down the way that I thought it was. So this lady comes up, and then she's trying to order. She has a kid. Kid is like crying a little bit, like wham, and she's holding the kid, right, crying, maybe like 2, 3, 4 or something, and she tries to order a peanut butter and jelly cold. So if you know Popeye Sandwich Works, they make hot sandwiches, and if someone requests a cold sandwich, the actual training was to try to get them to get a hot sandwich, because the bread is already pre-baked. So if it comes cold, it will be really, really chewy. But there was also another rule where you weren't allowed to say no to a customer. You can already see like these little like conundrums. And it was also, at least when I was trained, that if they do push it, you can get them a cold peanut butter and jelly. And then she goes, yes, I've been here many times. I know I'm not supposed to get cold. I know your guys' spiel. My kid still likes it cold. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. So we take the sandwich, and then we start bringing it to another station. We already talked to this customer. Kid's still crying over the shoulder. The person that sat down, the corporate person that sat down in that chair, they stand up and they start yelling, I am blank blank. They're saying their name. I am blank blank. And I mean that they nonstop said it. As they're walking up, they're actually behind, yelling past the kid right here, the kid, and the lady's ears, basically saying like, I'm this person, that needs to be cooked, that needs to be hot, that can't be cold and stuff. And like the ladies, like the customers, like freaking out. She's trying to say like, oh, I've already talked to them about it, I know. And they're just like ignoring him, and he's just going off at all of us. And then he just storms out. And me and this other shift leader, we immediately, we were like, we look at each other, we were like, was that real? Did that really just happen? Did that really just, I was shocked. Like literally was yelling in this kid's ear, and the lady like inches away yelling at us about like how this sandwich needed to be hot, and that who they were. And it's like, well, we know who you are, but like customers don't know this. This place is packed. A lot of people were looking at this person like, well, like they were probably thinking like, do we need to call the police or something? It was that insane. We apologized to this lady. Like I ended up talking to her. I go to the other shift leader. It wasn't their store. They helped out a lot. So I was like, hey, I got this. So I'm talking to her, and I'm like trying to explain the situation. She goes like, thank you so much for talking to me and apologizing, explaining everything, because after that person was yelling, I was never going to come in here again. Thank you so much. And I did see her more in the future, but like that was the I remember sitting, I remember sitting in my bed that night and I was just sitting there thinking about, I was like, these people just don't care. Like, I was like, I cared so much. Like, I was like, every customer like mattered to me. And I was like, I had all these good ideas and just nonstop, just like all my ideas just getting taken down and all these ridiculous situations and stuff like that. I was like, I wonder how many sandwiches that lady like ended up buying in the future. Like, I saved her as a customer, right? And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, this guy's like making a lot more money than me. I was like what? I was like, what is even happening here? It was just still blew my mind, still blows my mind to this. Annetta's heard this story like 100 times, so she's probably like tired of hearing it. But yeah, like I said, a lot of thinking that night, and it's kind of like why I work on my own now for eBay, because I get to do all my ideas, I get to get all my rewards, I even get to get all my consequences, I get to use my customer service skills, I get to actually care about everything that I can care about. So like I get control of all of it. It feels good. I don't have to like have my idea be shot down when it ends up being a good idea 10 years later and stuff like that. And I'm not going to yell at a customer like that. Not once, not ever. Every customer matters. Now we're at my departure. It was like bittersweet at first. So at the beginning of the year, I had a bunch of pay time off. So what you do is you accrue pay time off from how many hours you work from, or this is how it worked, at least when I was there, from the previous year. And I knew at some point in the middle of the year that I was going to be quitting. Like I decided already, it's time to move on to my next endeavor. So I talked to my general manager and my district manager. I said, well, first off, my general manager, I think, was the second longest working employee at Potbelly. Basically, masterclass pro experience. And then the district manager also had been there a long time. So I went through my general manager and I talked to them. I said, hey, and look at this, look at this. I was actually caring about this. I said, is it okay if I actually spend all of my overtime? So not overtime, sorry. If I spend all of my vacation days, even though I'm going to be leaving later this year. And then they're like, yeah, that's fine. There's no rules against this. I have to pass through it through the district manager. So they eventually get back to them. Hey, did you go through the district manager? And they go, yes, you got permission. You can use it even though you're leaving this year. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I wasn't going to use it if that was like against some kind of rules. I cared that much even when I was like out the door. So then flash forward like a few months later, when I put in my 2 weeks, store was heavily understaffed. I was like, okay. I originally wanted to work like, way less hours. I was kind of like already mentally over it because I was like kind of mentally planned it for a bit. So I was like I slowly worked slightly less and less hours. But then this week I did 2 40-hour shifts. Sorry, 2 weeks of 40 hours. It was my last hurrah. And then I also needed this money for bills coming up, like car bill, school loan, insurance, all that stuff, right? So I do the 2 weeks. The district manager tries to get me to stay longer. They have like another sit down talk, and they were like really saying basically how I was making a mistake and stuff, and just like being foolish for leaving, which was really insulting to me. But I just kept my cool and like, no, I'm moving on with my work life and stuff. And they were really trying to get me to stay, and it wasn't happening. So they were not upset, but they were like disappointed and stuff like that. It's like, I'm progressing with my life. Like I did everything well here. So a week later, I get a call from someone. Ross, don't shoot the messenger. I have your last paycheck, but you're not going to like it. I'm like super confused, right? Like, what do you mean not going to like it? I have 80 hours, like 80 hours. Like it was 80 hours. So I drive. I was like a short driving distance. I get there. I get my paycheck. I look at it, and I was like shaking angry. My paycheck was like something like $11 or $17, and I go talk to my district manager, because I go, why like I worked 80 hours. I could have like worked less, and like I worked 80 hours. What's going on? And they're like, they took out your vacation days. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, I know you're mad, but I'm not the one. They took out your vacation days, like your vacation time. I'm like, oh, oh, okay. So I don't get mad at my district manager. Sorry. I don't get mad at my general manager. I don't get mad at my district manager. I already asked them permission earlier in the year if I could do this. So I drive home. I'm calm. I have to stay calm because I was like, I'm normally not a person that gets mad. This ticked me off. It pissed me off. Still naive. First job. I call human resources, right? I get this person there. They're very defensive. I'm being very calm. I'm basically saying like, hey, there must be a mistake. My paycheck says like $11. Here's my paycheck number. Here's my name. You can check my clock-in receipts. I had everything ready to go. I worked 80 hours, and they're starting to get like defensive to me, and I was like super confused. I was like, what do you mean like that like I wasn't supposed to get my vacation time? I was like, I earned them from last year, and then I used them now. And I was like, I told this person on the phone, the human resources person, I said, I asked my general manager, who is the second longest standing person in the company, and then my district manager, there should be no reason why I would not doubt, they wouldn't know what they're talking about. I basically went like, there's no reason why I should have thought otherwise. The person on the phone said, you're lucky we didn't take more. I go, how long have you worked here? I asked them. They're like 2 years. I don't fully remember what I said next. It probably wasn't too nice because it was like a volcano. Like I said, I needed this money for bills. I worked 80 hours. I cared about this company for 5 years. This was the last thing that happened to me. It was, yeah, I basically like, I basically blacked out and probably didn't say nice things at that point because like I basically said like probably something like, I worked 5 years more than you've ever worked in this company. They're gonna poop on YouTube, blah blah, blah all this stuff. So, oh, that phrase still sticks in my head. Like, you're lucky we didn't take more. We didn't take more. Man, like I said, this first job, it's not all negative. I learned so many life lessons from that, from the beginning all the way to the end. If I'm lucky they didn't take more. I sat there and I thought about it later on. I like after I got over the rage and the anger, and I just moved on with my life. I didn't do anything with it. I had recently thrown out my like employee handbook. It was like the one time I like had cleaned out everything and it had all like the rules and stuff. It was like my most updated handbook, so I couldn't find it because I wanted to like see the rules of like the pay time off because I wanted to see it written somewhere. I like playing board games and rules, so I wanted to see it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Couldn't find the website. Try to get it, of course, through like emails and stuff. That no, it didn't. I didn't get it. I got some very basic ones, but I sat there later on when I was sitting there, like more, I just moved on with my life. Went on with my next job, my next endeavor, which I'll eventually get to on this channel at some point. It was a massive endeavor, but yeah, I still that lucky. And then I thought about it. I was like, if I actually didn't work like the 80 hours, I actually don't think that they could have taken like my money. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have been something that I could do. So yeah, I always thought like people, before I had my job, I'm listening to other people complain about their jobs and about like, corporate and blah, blah, these people. And I always thought people were being like a little bit of babies, but I got to witness like firsthand, at least for when I was working there, just like me caring more than like other people that get paid more or that are in these higher positions. And it just like eventually like slapped me out of my naiveness. Like I'm also like thankful that I had a lot of these like small things that kept bothering me as I was going along, because it led me to where I am today, where I get to be in control of everything, you know. So because like I could probably still be at this other, I could still probably be at Potbelly, you know, probably not making as much as I am doing stuff like eBay, or I like with eBay I get to do what I want, and then I get to progress it the way I want. And if I have a good idea, I get to implement it. If I have a bad idea, I'm gonna see the negative results. But yeah, I learned a lot, like a lot in there. So I learned customer service. I broke out of my shell. Met a lot of different types of people, from like working with friends, rivals, enemies, learning like that skill set, learning how to like, I think the customer, and like I think the real thing that I took out of it, where I still have, is I care about the customer. I really do. And I care about like kind of like the business concept in general. So like for me now, it's like my eBay store, really care about that. It's something I like take serious all the time. It's something that I learned through that. Watching other people, in my opinion, not take it serious, really instilled into me like who I am and my character, and what the potential I have. And yeah, learned a lot. Really learned a lot. But I had it in me the whole time. I had it in me the whole time, and it just had to be pulled out. So, all right, this is a different one. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Have a good one.